Welcome, listeners. This is Michael Beach, and you are dialed into the What Are You Doing podcast. This is the show for thought leaders who are investing in the next generation of leadership for their organization. This is also the show for you if you are an emerging leader who wants to become a great leader. Our mission is to spread the message far and wide that the world needs leadership today more than ever. Let's work together to make it happen. We're excited to be able to bring you another What Are You Doing podcast episode today. At Michael Beach Coaching and Consulting, we're on the front lines every day, helping people to prepare themselves and to prepare their emerging leaders to become strong and courageous leaders. It's a calling for us, and we love answering the call. Today, we're calling on you to join us. I'm especially excited today to have the opportunity to introduce you to today's special guest, my friend and an extraordinary leader in her own right, Thomasina Skipper. Let me tell you a little bit about Thomasina. Thomasina is a business growth expert. She consults with business owners, CEOs, and senior executives who want to grow their businesses. Thomasina earned her bachelor's degree from Syracuse University and her MBA from Kennesaw State University with honors. Thomasina was an executive at State Farm Insurance companies for over 27 years before starting her own business and becoming a professional certified business coach who helps leaders to grow their business successfully. I could spend about half an hour telling you about her accomplishments and the many awards she's received, but I want to get her on the show. So we'll just say her accomplishments are many and her list of awards is long and impressive. Thomasina, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Michael. I've been looking forward to this opportunity to talk with you and to share some insights with your listeners.
Well, I can't wait to get started on that. I know you're going to share some incredible wisdom with our listeners today. Shall we talk a little bit about leadership?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, Thomasina, I have to tell you, I love your motto. I grow people for a living. I wanted to give you a chance to put your business in the spotlight for a moment. Could you please tell us about all of the things that you do in your coaching and consulting practice?
Well, I work with business owners and senior leadership people to understand the key elements of growth. Those having the vision, having a mission, understanding the measurable objectives that need to be accomplished in order to call a year a success. But it's more than just that, and it's more than just coming up with the strategy to meet those objectives. Many, many times, we have to deal with a lot of the underlying issues, the culture of the organization, the strength of the leadership and having the courage to challenge the status quo in order to move the organization to a higher level. And I really believe that leadership is not about the leader. It is about the follower and how they interact and understand the people that they're trying to lead. And so that's my baseline is you grow people. If you help people grow, you help them become the best that they can be, you'll have someone who'll bring you what I call that discretionary effort, something you can never pay enough money for. But that's the secret ingredient to help every leader to reach the heights of success and satisfaction for their whole team.
Wow, you bring a lot to the table, Thomasina. I can see why your business efforts have been so successful over the years. Thomasina, I'm sure that our audience would love to hear a little bit about some of the great books that you've discovered during your career. What's perhaps the best business or leadership book that you've gotten your hands on over the years?
Well, one of my favorite books, and I don't know if you'd call it a leadership book, but I love the book, The Power of Habit by Charles Dunhill. I was so impressed when I read it years ago. I went out and bought copies for all my my siblings, and they didn't appreciate it. I'll tell you that because they're like, "What is this big thick book?" But I was very impressed with that book because he talked about, the little things that we do to feel a sense of accomplishment, and how it's a matter of a good system. So I love that book. I also like Traction. That's been one of my favorite books. I read that book 3 times and created a 12-page review summary that I pass off to my clients.
Nice.
Some of them don't like to read as much as I do.
Okay.
But I thought that book really highlighted the journey business owners go on and how difficult it is to move out of their own way. And to create an organization that's scalable and enjoyable. And too many of the small business owners that I work with are, as a friend out of PBCA told me one time, they're held hostage by their business. They cannot see clearly how to develop the middle management, how to give away the jobs. So I like Traction. I like the thought of planning annually. I'm certified with the one-page business plan company, and I've worked with that for many, many years.
Right.
And I truly believe that you plan annually, but you execute quarterly. And Traction was right there. Okay.
Well, that's a pair of really fantastic books. The Power of Habits by Charles Duhigg and Traction by Gino Wickman. A couple of great books for those of you who are listening today. You may want to check those out. At what moment in your life did you first become interested in leadership?
I thought about that. I can't remember a time when I didn't,
Okay.
In high school, I was very involved, led a lot of organizations. I guess it's more of my personality that, I enjoy going into a situation that's a little chaotic and bringing order. I mean, I've gotten on some nonprofit boards in the past that were really a disarray and felt really good when my tenure was over that I had helped establish systems and accomplished a great deal. So there's a part of me that likes that, but leadership has always been something I felt like if it has to be done and no one else was stepping up, that I would do it. I would take on the mantle.
Well, it sounds like you have a strong and very well-developed sense of duty and responsibility. Over the years, I have to imagine that you've led some great teams and developed some strong teamwork and collaboration on those teams. Would you share with us how you developed that strong collaboration and that strong teamwork?
One of the things that I think is really important in teamwork is when you ask people and you listen to what's important to them. My basic philosophy is most people want to be successful, and they just need someone to help them or to at least give them the bumper car. So I've hired young people into the industry that I worked in. I had a young agent say to me one time, "I figured out what your job is." And I was like, "Really? What's my job?" And he said, "Your job is to make me successful." And I went, No, that's not my job. That's your job.
Wow.
My job is to be the bumpers on both ends so that you don't fall off while you're figuring it out. And I do think that before I even got into coaching and understand how important it is to help people find their own answers, I was doing a bit of coaching by helping folks realize what was important and how to self-discover it and picking them up and dusting them off and pushing them back out there. I think all of that comes from being the leader that people want to follow. I mean, that's the other part of it. It's not about leadership sometimes. It's about followership. Are you the kind of person people want to follow?
Oh, that's terrific. Thomasina, what would you say is the accomplishment in your life or career that has brought you the greatest satisfaction or has made you the most proud?
My children. It has nothing to do with my career. Although I was a working mother, and at some parts of my career, I was actually a single mother with 3 children. Okay. After my divorce. And my children never played house. they played office because I had to pick them up from school, take them back to my office. I had it all set up. And so they got a chance to really be a part of what does it mean to be the boss? What does it mean to, run a business? They have always been a part of it. So I'm the most proud that I have 4 high-functioning adult children, 7 wonderful grandchildren, and they're strong men and women in their own right, and they get what they deserve because they believe in themselves.
Well, that is quite an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Terrific. Thank you for sharing that with us. It's always a pleasure for me to speak with a great leader. Thomasina, can you reveal for our tribe of listeners the best single investment you've ever made in yourself as a leader?
Yeah, that's easy. I decided to go back to school and get my MBA. It was 20 plus years after I left college. It was after I got my last child into college and out of high school. But I always had this overwhelming need to learn. I think I did the Gallup Strength Trainer, and my number one strength is I'm a learner. I mean, I will read a cereal box. So going back and getting an MBA actually fed a part of me that I didn't even know was thirsty. Just learning and being around other thought leaders and people who were different industries from myself. It was by far the best experience I could have ever done. The problem was when I first started the program, it was an executive MBA program. I had, I thought, the support of my bosses at the time, that they were going to pay for it. It was only after I'd gotten accepted and ready in the program, they told me that they were not going to pay for my MBA. So here I was with a $26,000 bill that I needed to cough up. And I had to make a decision. Was this important enough for me to, pull my finances together to do it? And it was. And I'm glad I did. I owned it.
Wonderful.
It was mine. And I enjoyed every bit of it. And it was the springboard for me to go further, to get other designations in my industry, and just fed my need for lifelong learning.
Well, that's a great story about a wonderful fork in the road in your life, and we're delighted that you took the path that you took and that your choice turned out so well. Thomasina, can you tell our listeners about what you're doing to raise the level of your leadership game these days?
I love reading. I really do. And so I try to read at least 1 to 3 good business books a month. Now, don't get me wrong. I read a lot, period. On average, I read about 5 to 6 books a week. I don't watch much television, but those are the romance, entertainment kind of things. But
okay.
I like business books. I like books that will challenge me. I look at articles online. But the other thing is, I think is important is I engage with other leaders. I join associations. Like PBCA, those types of opportunities where you can be involved and talk with other folks, that truly keeps those synapses connected, stimulates it. I think you just have to bring your intellectual curiosity to the forefront every day.
Amen. Listeners, you heard the acronym PBCA. For those of you who might not know what that stands for the Professional Business Coaches Alliance, and Thomasina and I are both longtime contributing members to that fantastic alliance. There's about, 100 or 125 coaches in it across the globe, and just a terrific group of people. And we get together from time to time and we share ideas with one another and continue our education together. Wonderful stuff, Thomasina. I wanted to explore with you your experience of becoming a leader despite the many challenges you face as an African-American woman. Would you be willing to speak to our audience about how you addressed those many challenges and overcame so much?
Sure. Yeah. The challenges weren't always from someone who didn't look like me. When I decided to go into State Farm leadership, I was at a meeting of my peers at the time, African-American State Farm agents. And I'll never forget, this gentleman stood up and said he heard that some woman wanted to go into leadership and he couldn't understand why she'd want to do it. It's the stupidest thing in the world. And, he went on and on and on. And then he sat down and I stood up and said, I think you're talking about me. And my reason for going into leadership is I think it takes more courage to go in and fight from the inside than it does to stand on the outside and talk about it. It wasn't. Good for you. It was 2 years later that I was assigned to him as his manager, and he was very happy to have me. So I felt it from that end, but there's so many times when I sat in one of my management meetings at the time, the company had an initiative to bring on more minorities and more women. And I'm the only person that looked like me in the room. And they went around the table and every single white male manager in the room said they could not find a woman and they could not find a minority anywhere. And when they got to me, I told them I couldn't find a white man to save my life. And the reason I said that is we recruit ourselves. It is so easy for me to find somebody who looks like me. And if I needed to step out of my comfort zone, they needed to do the same thing. That's what this was about. That if we truly wanted to make a difference, we'd have to recognize that, not stay right where we were. So yeah, I've had some challenges. When I went back and got my MBA, at the time, the VP told me to stop talking about it. Nobody wanted to hear it. It was just because other people weren't doing it. And so it was not something they wanted to discuss. He also told me at that same time I was the number one associate on his team, but he told me he wasn't going to give me a raise because there were men on the team who needed more money to take care of their families, and that, I was a woman, and so I didn't need the raise. So it was some interesting things that have gone on. So the thing is, I don't believe any organization can afford the brain drain of sexism or racism. We need everybody at the table. We need everybody bringing their best selves and all of their talent to figure out a problem. Right. And because if everybody looks the same at that table, you may not get any new perspectives on how to solve the problem.
Well, amen to that. I love the idea of everyone, no matter what they look like, no matter what their background is, bringing their best and helping everyone around them to bring their best as well. That sounds like the kind of world that I want to live in. You mentioned something there that I think bears repeating. You talked about how people need to get out of their comfort zones. And I've learned, as I'm sure you have, Thomasina, over the years, that far too often people are stuck in their comfort zone. And the reason why they're not able to move forward is they're so comfortable doing the same thing today that they did yesterday and the day before and the day before that. So listeners, if you're paying attention, Thomasina shared a nugget of gold with you. You want to change your life for the better? It's going to start by you getting uncomfortable for just a little bit of time. And if you take 1 or 2 or 3 steps a day outside of your comfort zone, it's not going to kill you. And you'll quickly find that you'll survive and you'll get a little more comfortable every day and you'll sneak a little further outside of that comfort zone. And that's where the magic of change really starts to happen.
That's also growth too.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I'm interested, Thomasina, in finding out what the greatest leadership advice is that anyone has ever given to you. Do you happen to remember that advice and perhaps who gave it to you?
When I was going through my MBA, I had a great professor who told me, we said to the class, you need to hire great people, invest in their development, and get the you-know-what out of the way. And, it's interesting because I've heard Bill Gates and some other folks, Steve Jobs, would also talk about why would you hire smart people and then dumb them down? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And it also doesn't work today. When we think about leading a workforce today, we've got 4 generations in this workforce. And so the baby boomers with their command and control, do what I say, how I say it, when I say it, they are going to lose the great talent because younger people really don't want to be commanded. They want to be engaged. They want to be collaborated with, and they want to be developed. And so I think, without a doubt, you got to hire the right people. There are just so many ways. I mean, I had another great mentor who told me you can't coach tall. And his whole philosophy was that if you had a basketball team, you couldn't hire a 4-foot center to be on the professional team. You had to hire someone tall enough and then coach them to be better. So you got to start with the raw talent. There's no doubt about it. But after that, everything you can pour into them, everything you can do for somebody to help them be their very best. And I'm not talking micromanaging. I'm talking about standing them up, building them up so that they believe in themselves. And then just move out of the way, because sometimes they might do it a lot better than you can do it. So don't think that you have all the answers.
Well, that's terrific advice. I always enjoy giving my coaching peers an opportunity to put our audience into school just briefly. Do you have a 60-second leadership lesson that you'd like to share with our listeners?
One leadership lesson I like, there's another book I favor, and it's called It's Okay to Be the Boss. And I particularly use this when I'm working with small business owners or people in their first year of leadership. And one of the lessons that he teaches is that we should treat people fairly, but not always equally. And in that, he means that, sometimes bosses and leaders spend all of their time managing to the lowest denominator, the team member with the most problems and all of those things. But consequently, they will lose sight of their high performer. The high performer who deserves the attention, needs the attention. And so, I've kind of encouraged folks, when someone comes to you and says, I'd like to work from home 4 days a week, you're supposed to say, great. Let's figure out exactly what you need to do and how you need to do it and how consistent you're doing it so that you can get what you want. And I do think that that's so important, that when you look at folks, that I think instead of us asking them to be great workers, we should ask the boss. The boss should bring their best selves and say, you deserve a great boss. I'm going to improve my skills. I'm going to be very good at what I do so that you can't wait to get out of bed and run here and play with me every day, because this is such a great place to work.
Mm-hmm. What a phenomenal mindset. I hope you were paying attention there, listeners. Remember, Thomasina has told us you can't coach tall. And Thomasina, I'm wondering, what has persuaded you over the years to spend so much of your precious time and energy in an effort to develop others to become stronger leaders?
I've always believed too much is given, much is required. And I always thought that I was, aside from what it might look like, I always thought I was pretty blessed. I thought I was fairly smart. I had a high IQ, had a good work ethic, had great upbringing. All of those things I wanted to bring to the workplace. Okay. And so when I came to the workplace and I looked around, I realized that people needed to have someone who could help and advocate to grow their strengths and to be a part of the solution. Okay. So, I've always enjoyed that, and I've always thought that was important. But I also felt, because of my age, I always felt a little bit of carrying the race and my gender on my shoulders, that I needed to be to stand up and be the example that I didn't have, that I would be the mentor for anybody who wanted to negotiate the halls of corporate America. So I always felt personally responsible for making a difference and blazing a trail.
Well, thank heavens for that. I love the way that you think about being an example and modeling the behavior that everybody else should be bringing to the table. That's a great approach. Do you place a high value on emotional intelligence when you're teaching your clients to recruit and to develop strong leaders within their organizations?
Yes, I do. I mean, when we look at emotional intelligence, the things that we want to talk about, social skills and empathy, those are really important parts of the EQ equation. When I'm looking to recruit or talk to people about recruiting, I also talk to them about looking for the things that are the intangibles. Mm-hmm. The same guy who told me you couldn't coach tall also said you can't put in what God left out. And so if you are looking, first and foremost, when I work with my clients, I teach them and help them understand that the very first thing they should look for in hiring is character. And the number one character trait we're looking for is honesty. You can't train that. People either come with that or they don't. And if they aren't honest, no level of performance is going to make up for the dishonest person. Right. So we look for character. The next thing is attitude. I mean, people, I think when you hire them, here again, I can't change an attitude. They're either going to care about what they are doing or they're not. Right. And then the next is motivation. I do not believe I can motivate another human being. I think motivation is an inside job. What I can do is inspire. I can put the information there, but you got to want it for yourself. And you really do. And most leaders would much rather hold somebody back than light a fire up underneath them, and so you got to look for people who already have that inside of them. And then it's the hardwired. I have 4 children. One is followed my path and went into the industry I had. But the 3 others, their personalities would never have thrived in the financial service industry, but they thrive in their own industries. Mm-hmm. And so here again, the personality needs, how you're hardwired, you need to find the thing that really jazzes that so that you come back and want to really give it your best. So those are kind of now self-awareness, that was always one of those things that I thought people beat me up with. You're not self-aware enough, and I would always think, yeah, I am. But it is the perspective of someone else. If you want me to sit in the corner and quietly say nothing, I am probably not self-aware enough to do that.
Well, Thomasina, I have arrived at my final question. Would you tell us about some of the primary things that you share with your many clients about management and leadership? What are some of the things you focus on?
Well, we talked a little bit about that, there are 3 major areas I believe we work in business. That's business acumen, understanding the numbers. You can't be in business and put your head in the sands and never look at the numbers. You've got to look at the numbers. You've got to grow your skill set around what the numbers say to you. Sure. Then I think the next thing is the business administration. That is the operation of doing the business. I mean, you got to understand the clients that you're trying to serve, how do you approach them, and just getting the work done internally. I don't care what business it is. Mm-hmm. You got to have those internal processes and systems. And then the last is people. People are the only thing that will grow a business. I mean, desks and chairs and buildings, they don't grow anything. People are the magic. So putting time behind people and helping them become their best selves, you do those 3 things, you're going to have a great organization.
I believe it. Thank you, Thomasina. I knew our conversation was going to yield a lot of gold for our listeners, and you delivered a treasure trove of wisdom and insights today. Thank you for being my guest today and for sharing your story with our audience of executives and emerging leaders. I really appreciate it very much. Well, that's our episode for today. What are you doing, listeners? We want to thank our special guest, Thomasina Skipper from Jonesboro, Georgia, the business growth expert. Thomasina, if our listeners want to contact you for some growth coaching or consulting, how can they contact you?
You can find me www.thomasinaskipper.com. So that's my website. And if you go on there, there's a contact place where you can send me an email. My email address is tskipper@thomasinaskipper.com.
Okay, tskipper@thomasinaskipper.com.
Yes.
Fantastic. Our next episode will be released next week. Thank you, listeners, for joining us, and please reach out to us at info@michaelbeachcoach.com to give us your feedback about today's episode with Thomasina Skipper, or to share your suggestions with us for a future guest, or to help us make our podcast even more valuable to you as you invest in leadership development. We'll look forward to spending that next episode together with you. Until then, remember, you can't coach tall. We learned that today. If you need a tall player on your team, you need to hire a great player and invest in them so that they can become a confident and courageous leader who happens to also be very tall. See you next time.